Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Yes, welcome. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. We'll let everyone join in.
And a quick reminder, if you have any questions, just please write them in the Q&A.
All right. We'll just give it another few seconds before getting started. And just so you guys know, we do like to try to keep these to, around 30 minutes. We know that your time is valuable. And so we do just try to start on time and, have it run for about 30 minutes. And then we do upload it to our YouTube page so that you can go back and listen to the information and also see the slides if you want to jot down any of that kind of information.
Thank you, Sarah. And again, for the new people coming in, please write any questions in the Q&A box. Yeah, we'll be able to answer either verbally or in the chat.
All right, so let's just go ahead and get started. Sarah, my name, here. Okay, let me just go ahead and change that real quick. She's stating that my name is covering my face. Let's see if I can change that and shorten it. I don't know if it'll actually let me change it. It might be the way that the screen is
Yeah,
well.
the camera.
Taller. Yeah, I'll try to sit up a little bit taller.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right, let's see. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide and kind of do a rundown of what our discussion topics are going to be. So I pulled these from some recent car newsletters. So we're going to go over 5 common mistakes that car legal tends to see regarding their call center, their legal call center. And so we kind of just wanted to touch base and kind of talk through some of those scenarios. We're also going to go over DRE investigations, what you as licensees should know, and kind of what the broker does when we receive those. We'll also go over a few REeBroker housekeeping items regarding transaction files and things like that, TC coordination, and then we'll answer your guys' questions.
Perfect. So I will start with the 5 mistakes you don't know you're making. Hopefully you do, but this is general span. So Car Legal is a great resource to contact if you ever have legal questions regarding situations or scenarios that are happening within your transaction. Because the broker's office, we cannot provide you with legal advice, we will link the Car Legal hotline information at the end of this section. Common mistake number 1, the listing agent does not revoke an outstanding seller counteroffer when the seller wishes to consider a second offer. So the scenario is the seller provides a counteroffer to one buyer, and while waiting for a response, the seller receives and accepts a better offer. To avoid any legal issues, you should revoke the counteroffer before accepting another offer. How do you do that? The law permits a seller to revoke an outstanding offer either orally or in writing. The agent should choose whichever method is fastest for them. One approach is for the listing agent to simply call the buyer's agent and explain that the seller has received or expects to receive another offer and is withdrawing the counter. The listing agent should then immediately confirm the conversation in writing by delivering the withdrawal of offer form, WOO, W-O-O. So this is very important. We've seen this happen before, and it's a little bit messy. Second mistake is the buyer's agent fails to correctly note the personal items included in the transaction when filling out the purchase agreement. So the scenario is Before closing, the buyer finds out that the seller has taken certain appliances that were listed as included on the MLS. Can a seller do this? Yes. Because of the RPA, paragraph 9A, which states categorically that regardless of what the MLS, flyers, or marketing materials advertise about personal property, what matters is whether that item is specified as included in the sale under paragraph 3P or 9 of the RPA. So please, agents, carefully check the MLS descriptions and advertising materials for items of personal property, and then write those items into the RPA as included in or excluded from the sale to avoid confusion. Okay. Another common mistake is not understanding that the purchase contract requires active contingency removal, and the listing agent does not advise the seller accordingly. So what does active contingency removal mean? That means that the contingency must be removed in writing. Otherwise, they remain in effect. So this is great for our buyers, but not so much for our sellers. So passing the 17-day default contingency time period does not mean that the contingency automatically goes away. What can you do as an agent to advise your seller when contingencies aren't actively removed? Please advise the seller that contingencies are in effect until removed in writing, and buyers retain their right to cancel, can keep the EMD, as long as their contingencies are still in place, regardless of the time that has passed. The seller will have a clear understanding of the risk they take in not requiring the buyer to timely remove the contingencies. The seller should serve a notice to perform to the buyer, and it's called NBP, the form. Okay, so far I don't see any questions, but I will see them if they pop up. Please write them down in the Q&A box. A fourth common mistake that we see is providing assurances to a client about legal outcomes or matters. One common example is reassuring the buyers that they will get their earnest money deposit back when exercising a cancellation right. There is never a guarantee. Some EMD disputes can take months or years to resolve, and not every judge or arbitrator will decide the issue of who is entitled to the deposit in the same way, even with the terms of the contract. Usually do not say anything legal to your buyers or sellers. You're not an attorney, and you don't want that liability. Okay, the fifth common mistake is using a poorly drafted appraisal gap provision instead of using paragraph 3L2 in the purchase agreement. The purchase agreement, the new one, is great. So please review it again and be very comfortable with it. So an appraisal gap is a difference between the purchase price and the value at which the appraisal contingency may be exercised. To create a stronger and more competitive offers, some buyer's agents will rewrite the appraisal contingency in the RPA, which may result in confusion and liability. It's difficult for anyone, even attorneys, to draft a clear appraisal gap provision. A year ago, the problem of agents writing this type of ambiguous language was so common that CAR created a new provision in its purchase agreement specifically designed to allow for an appraisal gap. So paragraph 3L2 allows a buyer to write a clear appraisal gap provision. The buyer may simply write in the value for which the buyer may exercise their appraisal contingency. What should a listing agent do when receiving an offer with a poorly drafted appraisal gap contingency? The listing agent should counter it out, or the listing agent may direct the buyer's agent to rewrite the offer, but this time fill in the item 3L2. Big takeaway is don't create a original language in a contract when there is pre-printed language that fulfills the same exact purpose. the RPAs take forever to come out with updates because CAR has many attorneys reviewing it, and I'm pretty sure they spend probably millions of dollars. So it's best to just use their language. And then here is the slide for the CAR legal contact information. This will be posted on our YouTube, like Sarah mentioned. So you don't have to jot it down. You'll be able to see it in the video then. Thank you.
Yes, and you can also find the CAR legal hotline number on most of the association websites. They also have a section for that as well. We do have a question regarding the new RPA. We do have a training video in our document, in our training section, a video that goes through the new RPA and how to fill it out correctly and what sections you should pay close attention to. So if you watch that and you have additional questions, you can always email into the broker's office. But there is that video on our training website already. And we also go over the listing agreement. We have a video for that as well. So the next thing that we wanted to touch base on is DRE investigations, kind of an overview of what they are and what you as a licensee should know. We do often, I guess not super often, but we do receive them. And the DRE investigations kind of come in waves, probably depending on how busy the DRE is and how quickly they can get the complaints reviewed. And so we'll just go over a few topics on what CAR came out with on what you guys should know as licensees. All right, so number one is, what are some of the common reasons that a DRE audit complaint would come out? Audit-focused complaints often are related to property management activity and broker escrow activity. So these two areas are more likely to become the focus of a DRE audit because they involve trust fund handling. Luckily, we as a brokerage don't often see these because we don't really have to worry about that because we don't authorize property management, nor do we have an escrow department. So we don't have trust fund handling sections of our accounting department. So we don't often get those audits. Number two are, so when we do receive a DRE investigation, what are the common items that are requested? Those items are the full copy of the transaction file from start to finish. That means all documents from the purchase agreement, listing agreement, all disclosures. They want to make sure that the agents are upkeeping their files. We also have to provide all communications. So that's all notes from our file, from the broker's office to the agent, all email communications that are uploaded between us, the agent, and the clients. We also have to provide what our broker policies and procedures are. Often when we do receive DRE investigations, we notify the agent and we request a written timeline of events. So we'll also include that because you as the agent know better exactly what steps took place in the transaction. And it's so as you're actually in a transaction, it's really great to keep that kind of record. Just in case a DRE investigation or audit does come up, you already have a timeline and it's easier to write as it's happening than it is to try to remember past events. So we also include those. And they often ask for a copy of the independent contractor agreement between us and the agent. Next. So what are the levels of regulatory actions and discipline by the DRE? There are 3 different levels. We have the cite and fine, which is a maximum fine of $2,500 per citation. There are instances where an investigation may come out with multiple citations. So they are allowed to, apply a maximum fine of $2,500 per citation. There's also the accusation, which is a disciplinary process that the DRE uses when they're seeking to limit a licensee. So whether that's a suspension or a revocation, something like that, to limit the amount of activity that an agent can do during the investigation. And then there's also the desist and refrain order, which is exactly what it sounds like. They can basically send both licensees and non-licensees a cease and desist. So that means that they're no longer allowed to do whatever that activity is. And then we have 4. What is the practical advice or first steps a broker should take if contacted by the DRE regarding an investigation? So for you as a salesperson, a licensee, a broker associate with our company, if you're contacted by the DRE directly, you should definitely notify us immediately. That way we can respond. Typically, the broker is the one that has to respond because we are the supervisory agency for you as the agent. So we respond to all DRE investigations. This is already one of our policies. We may reach out to you as the agent, the licensee, for additional information, timelines, records, but typically we have everything in our transaction file that we would need. Next. So what are some practice tips to help brokers comply with their duties to reasonably supervise our licensees, our agents, provide regular training opportunities, which you guys are already taking advantage of. We advertise these programs to you each month. We do it every other month. And so it's really great that you guys come, listen. We try to keep you up to date on new things that are coming out, whether it's with CAR, whether it's with the associations, new things happening in the market, things like that to keep you guys in compliance. We really try to bring that to you guys. Keep a calendar of all in-house trainings, which we do, by the way, have that on your agent homepage. You can see the training calendar there. It doesn't have the topics, but we typically send out what topics we'll be going over in the webinars with the email invitation. Provide programming on hot new risk management items. So as CAR releases new forms, we do like to go over those. So as typically they do it once, maybe twice a year, they will release new updated forms and we will bring those to your attention and talk about them. We do maintain up-to-date broker's office manuals. You can find those on your agent homepage. We do have policies and procedures regarding our supervision and compliance, what items you as licensees can and cannot do. It's very important to review these every once in a while. They're under your agent acknowledgement section. If we do update those pages, we do tend to send a notification within our messaging system, and you will receive those as well. And then the 5th one is assign an experienced responsible person to handle the brokerage firm's file managements. And when a DRE investigative inquiry comes in, typically we have one specific department and person that does take the lead on those. And number 6, how can a broker try to reduce the risk of a DRE investigation and prepare for the possible event of an investigation? So what the best way to do is just to be proactive, establish policies and procedures. That's why we have, as every new agent is onboarded, we have them go through all of the office manual policies, all of the agent acknowledgements, and we have you guys mark them as read, and it is for specific reasons because we do want you to know exactly what you can and cannot do so that you are in compliance with what our brokerage allows and what the DRE allows. All right, next. And number 7, this is just where you can find additional information and material about broker compliance. So CAR publishes helpful guides to assist licensees in complying with the DRE requirements. So if you go to CAR's website, you'll see legal Q&As, and they will talk about trust funds and trust accounts, which if you're interested, you could read about it. But like I said, we don't authorize property management and we don't have escrow, so we don't typically have those. But you can read about branch licenses, team names, basically what's allowed and what's not allowed. And then in addition, the DRE also has additional resources available on its website under the heading Real Estate Business Resources. All right, so we're just going to go over a couple of quick REeBroker housekeeping things with our files. This might be repetitive, but we like to bring it to your attention anyway. So the correct company names that are able to be used on your car forms and in your marketing is Real Estate eBroker Inc. or REeBroker Group. These are the only two that we allow. You would be surprised at how many different variations of our name we see on transactions. REeBroker is not correct. So if you do receive notification from the broker's office when reviewing your file asking you to correct these things, please take that to note. If you are using some variation other than these two, they're considered an unlicensed like team name or DBA, which then can get us in trouble. So we definitely want you to choose the version that you like the best. Obviously, REeBroker Group is the one that we prefer. It's on our logo. If you use that information on advertising, it's perfect. So, but you are also able to use Real Estate eBroker Inc. on your, car forms and things like that. Next. And then we also wanted to bring to your attention that the only address that you are able to use in both marketing and on your car forms is the broker's main office address. Unless you have a branch license, both registered with the DRE and with us, you're only able to use the main broker address, because this is a violation that when we talk about DRE investigations, there was a time where the DRE, I don't know if they had interns or what was going on, but we got notification after notification after notification in the mail about different agents who were using unlicensed or not authorized branch licenses on their marketing material. So they were scaring social media pages, flyers, all of these things, and they were sending out fines of like $2,500 per instance. So it's very important to make sure that you're reading what's allowed in your marketing, whether it's the name, the address, all of those things that need to be required. Next. And then we also just want to reiterate that in your transaction files, we want you to complete all documents. That sounds like it should be, a no-brainer. However, we often receive documents that are missing names, signatures, dates, page numbers. So we really want you to take the time to really go over the forms before you upload them and submit them for review. Like for instance, I think just last week we were reviewing a lot of referral files. For some reason, we had an influx of referral files, and the recipient broker address was missing on like 5 of them. You could just look that up by putting in the DRE number in the verify an address or verify a license number in the DRE, and it pops right up. So there's no reason that these forms should not be filled out. So yeah, we just wanted to bring that to your attention again. Next.
Excellent. So first we have a question. Juanita says, I received an approval to use my PO box for my return address on my marketing mailers, as there isn't a branch office in my area for me to utilize. Sarah?
So we do. So in Juanita's case, this is an instance where she was sending out postcards. And so this isn't a branch license. This is a return address for the post office. So in that case, we are allowing you to use the PO box for the return address. But in most marketing instances, flyers, social media, your website, if you do not have a branch license, and that includes car forms, if you don't have a registered branch license, you cannot be using anything other than the broker's main office address. That's an exception, not a rule. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, and then I wanted to bring your attention to a TC company we've been using. It's our preferred TC company for our transactions. The company's name is TC4U. And what they do is generate and auto-populate all forms after signed purchase agreements or counteroffers, review contracts and disclosures for completion and accuracy, checking for missing signatures and initials, order home warranty and natural hazard disclosure. They're not an assistant. They are a transaction coordinator. You still have to let them know all the information, and they'll make sure that all the parties are up to date based on that information. They know our system very intimately. They work with us. So we do recommend this transaction coordinator service. We trust them. And our pricing is really good. It's much cheaper than a lot of other TCs. For a single agency is $299, and for dual agency is $499. And the contact information is right there. You can also contact our office, and when you create a transaction, you can make sure the TC box is checked. And Jeffrey, to answer your question, no, it's they work all throughout California. So not just Southern California, they are aware of the other disclosures of different areas of California. Perfect, thank you. And if there's no other questions, I think that's good for the TC for you. But yeah, you can go on their website and take a look at more of their information. And now, is there any other questions or comments?
And I just wanted to also state that when you are using a TC, whether it is TC for you or a different TC, your own preferred TC, I do want to state that they should not be giving you advice. If you do have questions related to the transaction or the documents, you should be contacting the broker's office and not your TC. The TC is there to handle the documents in terms of getting required signatures, but they shouldn't be answering any kinds of questions of like how you should write something or what to include, nothing like that. You should always be contacting the broker's office for those kinds of questions.
Perfect, thank you. And then Jeffrey had another question. So does REeBroker Group have a tool or a pre-approved website to perform a tenant background check or screening? We do not, but we do recommend you checking out your association, and also I believe CAR has other recommendations too. Sometimes you might even get discounts because you're a CAR member or an association member. So we just suggest checking that out. And thank you so much, Antonio. And then Juanita, yeah, there is a list of contacts for different departments for REeBroker Group. Let me double check. The best way to just get in contact is just to email info, and then info always sends it over to the right place. But let me double check if I can show you. I have so many windows open. Let's see. Yeah, mainly just send info, send an email to info. If you're talking to somebody specific about a transaction, when you put it in the transaction notes, it will go directly to that person. So say one of our file reviewers. And if you have IT questions, it's IT support, but we don't really put all the different emails out because we don't want to create confusion. The best email address is just to send it to our general info. And even Sarah and I sometimes go in that box ourselves if somebody is taking a lunch. So you'll always get your questions answered. Okay, perfect then. Thank you for joining us. And oh, Andrea, Jeffrey, Andrea sent an answer also to you. She used to do property management for family-owned property, and they use ntnonline.com. Thank you, team. I love when our agents help each other out. So thank you so much. We'll be uploading this to YouTube. Goodbye.